This is Ken Pyle, and we're at the BroadbandVision show. We're with Vern Dosch of NISC. Now, NISC is one of the big billing kind of back office companies of both electric cooperatives and of telephone companies, and you were just on a panel. And why don't we start kind of with that question, because you kind of have these two parallel lives going on there, the co-ops, electric co-ops, and then the telecom companies. Where do you see those two kind of melding?
What's interesting for us is actually since 1964 we've been working with both industries, and we've had an opportunity through governance on our board, through work on advisory committees, where we have seen representatives from both industries working together. And that collaboration, that cooperation very much has been instrumental in building what is NISC today. So, we have a perspective that says this collaboration is good. We see opportunities for a lot more of it in the future.
One of the things, and it just really struck me just now, and it's so obvious, but it seems like the fiber and fiber to the home might be that point where you've got kind of these two entities kind of converging.
Yeah, like was said this morning, many times necessity is the mother of invention. And so these rural electrics, for the first time, literally since they were started, have a growing need and a growing dependency on broadband. They didn't really need that in their operation in terms of getting the data from the meters to their offices in the past. With smart meters, they have that need. So a lot of these discussions about, should these rural electrics and rural telephones be getting together, a lot of those have their beginnings when that rural electric comes up to their telephone neighbor saying, I've got to get this data back. I really don't have the infrastructure or the expertise to do it. Will you help me? And that's where we see the beginning of much larger partnerships that in some cases have evolved into actually deploying fiber in a joint manner.
Yeah, I can think of one of those off the top of my head, but one of the things that you said, it was very powerful. I never thought of it this way, that the power industry, they're looking at virtualizing power.
Yeah, the model that they've had for years was when their demand went up, when they were selling more and more power, even during the peak times, they had to build infrastructure. They had to build transmission lines, they had to build power plants in order to meet that demand. But what the telecom industry has done literally since the 1980s is we're gonna be more efficient in the use of our networks, and we're gonna encourage people by providing a monetary incentive to move their usage out of those peak times. Telcos were able to do that because you had the data, you had the call records that we could tell what time the call was made, and we could bill accordingly. We could develop the software to build that. Electrics have never had that up until today. Today they do. Today, when they're taking 15-minute readings of your usage or hourly readings of usage at your home, that's time-stamped, and we can say, okay, these kilowatt hours were used in this window. And so now, just like the telcos have been doing for years, where you've had time of use rates, the utilities for the first time are able to go to their members and say, we've got a time of use rate for you. Will you move some of your consumption outside of these peak areas so that we don't have to build another power plant, because that's very expensive and we have to recover that cost. So the data, the smart grid, is allowing them to build virtual power plants, and that is just to better manage the usage.
Well, and that raises another kind of point of convergence between these two industries is IP, right? Both are using Internet Protocol, right? Yeah,
where the electric industry is going to is those smart meters will eventually be IP-based. And so that build out of a whole IP network is very much a part of what they need also as the grid becomes smarter and smarter.
And kind of moving on from the technology part of it, but it leads to it, I think, is IP is a whole new set of skills, and you talked about embracing the culture, embracing a change.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges, we talk about policy challenges or competitive challenges or technology challenges, and all those are very real. But this whole notion about how are we going to staff these new organizations that are different business models, how are we going to staff those when we have 50% of our legacy employees that have been there for 20 and 30 years retiring? I mean, the boomers are retiring. So there's a lot of anxiety, I think, when people think about that, because there's an incredible amount of domain knowledge and institutional knowledge that is walking out the door at those retirements. But we have the opportunity to bring these young people in. You know, yes, they have a lot to learn, but they have a lot that they don't have to unlearn. They don't remember how things were, you know. They embrace technology. They embrace the notion that we're living in a ubiquitous broadband IP-based infrastructure, and let's go. So, you know, I look at that as a very positive and hopeful change in our industry. I don't look at it as being something that I'm frightened about.
Well, super. It gets back to the whole thing of smart grid, smart people. So.
Exactly. To build a smart grid, to build smart cities, to build smart cars takes smart people. The good news is we've got smart people in this industry.
Right. Well, Vern, thank you again.
Okay, thanks. Pleasure.
Thanks.